most important thing we need to do is for countries where this burden is already unbearable to help them with that restructuring. Committed to reforms, but held back by a mountain of debt from the past. We have seen Zambia proving that debt should be restructured, and, ladies and gentlemen, an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding of Zambia creditors, has been finally signed. A round of applause for Zambia.
You could say is 7.6% good or bad. For comparison, what they spend on education, first issue. The second issue is what that does effectively is it crowds out the ability of those governments to be able to put money to work for human capital, for climate, for infrastructure, for the things they need to put their country on the right pathway for the coming year.
When you look back at how far we've come since then, do you feel the need now for more initiatives? Do you think now is the time to be bold once again?
Thank you very much, Mara. And I think you are, Kristalina was instrumental in reaching the DSSR. I mean, it was a very difficult period. Funds were actually even very thinly available. Countries were scrambling for their own lives and on their own people. But still, there was hope. Then, creditors, even with the shock that they were facing in their own countries, actually cared about debtor countries. They came together through IMF, World Bank, and the G20. But then it is actually not possible just to suspend that service, indefinitely. So we needed to make sure it was extended for another period, but then we needed something to make sure that there is actually another way to deal with this debt, which then, through negotiation, came the common framework. And the idea behind common framework is you are actually fixing the engine of the plane when it is on air with full passengers on board. So you really needed to think very quickly, find a way to deal with it, and it's not something that you can actually design that fits every country and every group of creditors. So it will need to be really custom-made depending on circumstances of the individual country itself, but also the nature of the group of creditors. I think it is working. I think we should be creative in finding solutions that will help these nations. And by the way, I'm not a political appointee, I'm a technical appointee, and I could say.
The IMF has been wonderful. The World Bank has been wonderful. The Paris Club, the official creditors committee, led by France, China, and South Africa, they've been wonderful. The creditors have been wonderful. So thank you, everybody, for delivering this to us. Thank you so much indeed. You talked about the reforms that we've had to implement. Obviously, the first thing on the reform agenda, and perhaps we've never said this to you, let me tell you that it's embarrassing to find yourself in debt distress. One of the first things that we did was to say, never again should we allow this to happen in our country, at least not in this administration. Therefore, the first reform was to put legislation that makes it harder for any government, included stronger powers for parliaments to say yes or no to proposed borrowing. Another element was putting binding constraints in the legislation